I think, Murray, I heard
from yesterday, and this is this afternoon. This is live. This is the second qualifying session. We pick up the commentary with Murray Walker and Jackie Stewart.
Yes, this is the 60 minutes which matters more than any other that we have had since practicing started yesterday, because in the next 60 minutes the pole position and the grid positions for tomorrow's Australian Grand Prix, the third in the series since it started in 1985, is going to be away. Now that is Martin Brundle. The question that we are all asking ourselves is the track in fact slower today than it was yesterday? You may say, why should it be any slower? It's the same track. That is perfectly true, but the weather conditions are different. That is the speed, the time they're all going for. Gerhard Berger in the Ferrari yesterday was fastest. That is the man who had pole position in Portugal and in Japan in his Ferrari. Nice to see them back at the top, to put it mildly. In second position, the new world champion, Nelson Piquet. In third position, the world champion of 1986 and 1985, Alain Prost with his McLaren. Then another brilliant Brazilian, Senna, and fifth, Michele Alboreto in the second Ferrari. Thierry Boutsen, who we expect to do better, sixth, his teammate Fabi seventh. Riccardo Patrese out for the first time in the Williams yesterday, eighth position. Stefan Johansson, the second McLaren driver, ninth, and Andrea De Cesaris in the Brabham in 10th place. And there is the Brabham of Andrea De Cesaris, 10th on the grid. I was saying, the question is the track slower today than it was yesterday? It's the same track, but why should it be slower?
First of all, I think the temperature is definitely higher today here in Adelaide. Turbocharged engines don't like the increased temperature. They would much prefer a cooler temperature. They work more efficiently under those circumstances. But I do believe that there's a little hedging going on. The Ferrari people definitely felt that the track was going to be slower this afternoon, as Alain Prost, with brand new tyres, you can see the stickers are still on the tyres, he's accelerating out of the pit lane. I think what's going to happen is the last 10 minutes of this hour is going to be very feverish, because I think what's going to occur is that most of the fast teams will keep a set of tyres in hand for the final 10 minutes, because if someone does put a quick one in, they will then be able to retaliate. The tyres that are being used are the C compound Goodyears. That's the same compound as was used last year here in Adelaide, but it is a different construction. That's to say, the internals of the tyre are different. This tyre is exactly the same tyre as was used in the Grand Prix of Hungary, so it's just coincidental that it matches well with the road surface here in Adelaide.
Tyres are absolutely critical in qualifying, as in the race. There was a time last year, for instance, when the qualifying tyres would only last 3 laps. That is Michele Alboreto, and he is in 5th position on the grid at the present moment. You can see on his front wheels there that they have electric blankets which have been put on to preheat the tyres almost to racing temperature, so that as soon as the driver leaves the pit lane, there is no delay in working the tyres up to racing temperature. They have to be a certain heat in order for the rubber to be as pliable as possible and to grip the ground as much as possible. So at the last second, off come the tyre heaters. Then the driver knows he can drive at race speed straight away, as Stefan Johansson, number 2, is doing now. He is down in 9th position on the grid, having his last drive in the McLaren tag team in Adelaide on Sunday, after having driven for Ferrari last year, having driven for Tyrrell, for Tolman and the Spirit team, and that's his teammate, the great, and I use the word advisedly, Alain Prost, cracking round now. Alain Prost has gone round and done a pretty slow lap, 4 minutes 12.9, very slow, and that's of course because he was just motoring round slowly to gently run everything in, get the tyres up to their working temperature. And a man that everybody is going to be watching with enormous interest is sitting in that car there. Ayrton Senna, the brilliant Brazilian. Behind him is a Honda engine. This is his last drive for Lotus at the Australian Grand Prix, because next year he will be driving for the McLaren team with Honda engines, and off goes Michele Alboreto. Now, there's a very interesting situation here, because Michele Alboreto, the lead driver in the Ferrari team for some years, is actually being shown the way this year by Gerhard Berger, who has out-qualified and out-raced him. So Alboreto will be out to get his leadership in the team back again.
It's a tough life. What happens is that you're number one and you're up there as a target for your number two. The young lion came into Ferrari at the beginning of this season, and what happens is he immediately goes faster. We expected him to go faster in the odd practice session. Youth and exuberance, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed enthusiasm normally does that. But we expected Alboreto's knowledge and experience and maturity would really make the difference up in races, and therefore allow him still to have that number one above his head, at least in the Ferrari team. That has not happened this year, and seriously, Alboreto now is faced with probably being trounced by the Italian press by the fact that Berger is the fastest man and the man to beat. Now, they've lowered the suspension in this Ferrari so that it's really almost running on the road so that a fast time can be achieved, and Alboreto will want to prove that fast time to at least be competitive with his teammate.
A quick word about that, because as you look at the car coming towards us and now away from us, you can look underneath it and you can see that there is a minimum clearance. Look now. You see? But the closer you can get the car to the ground, the better the aerodynamics are. The better the aerodynamics are, the greater the grip of the tyres on the ground. And in order to get the car as close as possible to the ground, they literally have titanium plugs on the bottom of them, which allows them to drag along the ground when they're bumpy, and you'll see sparks striking up off the back of the Ferrari. It's nothing to worry about, but it is indicative of the fact that they are really going for it. And now, in this 60-minute final qualifying session, we are into the 8th minute. Thus far, nobody has gone faster today than they went yesterday. Everybody is out on the track, including Stefano Modena, the brilliant Italian. There's the sparks coming up, and that is Teo Fabi in the background in the inset. He is another Italian. He is going to be... And off has gone Campos. Well, it wouldn't be a Grand Prix if we hadn't seen Adrian Campos parking his car somewhere where it shouldn't be, and he's kept his unblemished record here at Adelaide. That is one of the 3.5-litre Lola cars with the atmospheric engine. It is being driven by Yannick Dalmas, and here is a car to watch. I think Alboreto and off. That's Campos going off the track. I've said before, I don't want to overstate it too much, but this young man is definitely over his head in Grand Prix racing. And Michele Alboreto now is working up to race speed. Let's follow him round this Adelaide circuit. You can see by the posture of the car, the stance of the man in it, and the way it is progressing around the track with particular reference to the APCs of the corners. He's coming up to market to Stag Turn. Now, as we look down at the helicopter, he heads towards Brewery Bend, the right-hander, which he takes in 3rd or 4th gear. Round it he goes. Now he's up to the fastest part of the course, approaching 200 miles an hour, over 300 Ks. He's got a slower car in front of him. He will need to get past before... Well, it's Dalmas that he's catching, and that will slow him down.
He's pulled out. He's stopped his fast lap. He doesn't want to get his tyres over hot for no reason at all. He judged that he was not going to do it this lap. You will not see a fast time for Alboreto here. Dalmas has put the cap on that. He will, however, wait to see if he can get Dalmas on the pit straight, but there's another car in front of that. It's Eddie Cheever in one of the USF&G Aero cars. The chances are Alboreto will cool it on this one also. There's no use of using up traffic as a slowing down method if you're going to go for a quick lap.
In the 10th minute, we have a driver who has gone faster today than he went yesterday. Martin Brundle in the German Zach Speed has improved his time by 0.2 of a second, but is still 18th on the grid. But that's interesting, and it shows that the track for some can be faster. But Brundle, way down the pecking order in 18th position, would be somebody you would expect to improve his time. As Alboreto pulls ahead of The Tyrrell of Jonathan Palmer, who is passed by Eddie Cheever, who has got right behind him, the 3.5 litre load. You can see the heat here at Adelaide, with the heat haze shimmering up from the road.
Well, the final hour of Grand Prix practice here in Adelaide, and we'll be right back after this.
Ready for the getaway with you?
Welcome back to Wide World of Sports, and you could not have come back at a more interesting moment, because this is Nelson Piquet, the world champion of 1987, in the passive suspension Williams, going for a really quick lap. Only two men have improved on yesterday's time so far, Martin Brundle and Dalmas, but they're starting now to improve all the way round, and Piquet has just gone round in 1:18.6, which is 0.6 of a second slower than he went yesterday. In this practice session, each driver is allowed only 2 sets of tyres. So what normally happens is they go out early in the session if you're a Williams driver, and now we're with Satoru Nakajima going down to Ketterville Terrace at over 200 miles an hour, getting ready to brake and change down for the hairpin and racetrack hairpin. Now into paddock turn. Look at the crowd. Down to Foster's hairpin. And with the gold stands coming into sight, so does the start and finish straight as Satoru Nakajima goes through, and his time is still slower than it was yesterday. Yesterday he was 14th fastest, 1:21.708. But just listen to the engine. To the right-hander of Brewery Bend, and this is the quick bit. Nakajima goes for it. Top gear, 200 miles an hour. Down through the box now. From 6th into 1st. Nakajima's target, his fastest so far, is 1:21.708. Is he going to go faster this lap? This is the last corner. It's going to be a close thing. Yes! You have ridden with Satoru Nakajima on his fastest lap so far here at Adelaide. And now, in the 17th minute, it's still Gerhard Berger fastest, and he has not yet gone out this afternoon. Nelson Piquet has, but his time is slower than it was yesterday, so maybe the track is slower.
Well, I don't know, but for Nakajima, I can promise you that his pulse rate is up close to 200. He will be certainly taking a lot out of himself. And I went down to the pits between practice and qualifying, and I saw a chiropractor working on Nelson Piquet. He's got a sore back and a painful neck. An Australian chiropractor who's been brought in by the Williams team is working with the Williams drivers, was looking after Nelson Piquet just, I suppose, 10 minutes before practice started. So let's see if a little bit of bone cracking could help him. There he's second fastest, the time 1:18.01. He will be looking for a fast time. I don't think he's in a quick one right now. Nelson Piquet, a very healthy young man nowadays. looking after his body very well, keeping down to weight, having a lot of exercise, looking after the nutrition. Racing drivers paying extra attention to this nowadays. Was a very good tennis player, incidentally, before he became a racing driver. A lot of sportsmen have adapted from one sport to another, and this is certainly true of Nelson Piquet.
In the 18th minute of this 60-minute practice session, here are the men who are faster today than they were yesterday. Nakajima, who is 14th. Brundle, who is in 18th place. Dalmas, who is 22nd. Arnoux, who is 24th. Campos, who is 25th and just scraping in on the grid. And that is very significant. Berger, with 1:17.267 from yesterday, has still not gone out. He's saving his ammunition until the very last stages. Piquet has, that is Ayrton Senna in the background, getting ready. He has on his fireproof balaclava helmet. He will have very heavy Nomex underwear, long johns, long-sleeved underwear, very heavy Nomex socks, Nomex boots. That is a triple layer overall that he has on, and they cost over $2,500 a set, those overalls. On top of all that, he puts his helmet, and that is the weighing procedure that you saw there. But now, Patrese, who is 6th fastest, is the highest of the men who have gone round quicker today than yesterday. He has improved his time by 7/10 of a second, and if Patrese can do it, maybe some of the others can. That is the monitor on Alboretto's Ferrari, and there is Michele himself sitting in his V6 turbo car.
Incidentally, Michele Alboreto, like his teammate, is not in good physical condition this weekend. He's got dreadful hay fever, eyes are running all the time, nose is choked up, not enjoying the weekend physically at all. As I said earlier, if you heard the previous telecast, Berger is suffering from a fever. I think he's a slight hypochondriac, because I asked if he had a temperature and he said, well, the thermometer says there is no temperature, but I'm sure I've got one. So I think he's really looking for trouble. However, on the other hand, Heinz Prüller, the very successful journalist and television commentator from Austria, tells us reliably that Berger only drives when he's feeling very bad. The worse he feels, the faster he goes.
That is true. In Portugal, Berger was complaining in the same sort of way, saying, I have flu, I feel very sick, but it didn't stop him from getting pole position. It didn't stop him from leading the race for most of it and finishing in 2nd place only when he had a lapse of concentration and lost 1st position to the man you're looking at now, number 1 Alain Prost, who won in Portugal, who won in Belgium and who won in Brazil. 3 times winner this year. But Alain Prost is a double world champion. He's lost that privilege in 1987. He's only 4th in the championship now, behind Senna 3rd, Mansell 2nd and Piquet 1st. But now you're looking at one of the top men, if not the top man of Grand Prix racing. Just watch the way he smoothly and effortlessly controls the car. He is on the razor edge between getting round the corners as quickly as possible and flying off into the concrete. But still, nobody above 6th position has gone faster today than they did yesterday. Alboreto has not. Prost, that you are looking at, has not. Piquet has not. And Berger has not gone out.
Certain changes were made to these cars, and there we've got a fire again. Marino's got a problem, and the fire extinguishers are right on top of it this time. That was a very quick one. Now that is not a turbocharged fire. This is not a turbocharged car. This is a normally aspirated car, and that's a fuel fire. It's not an oil fire. There was not much black smoke coming from that. That was a fuel fire. I suspect that a fuel line became detached from itself, got onto the hot exhaust pipes, vaporized and went up. That could easily have been a very nasty situation.
Yes, and I suspect there is some sort of installation problem with that AGS car, because Moreno in this morning's practice blew up his engine very conclusively, Here he is touring in. You can see the flames licking out of the back underneath the engine cover through the radiator outlets. And Moreno obviously kept going until he saw some fire marshals at the ready. And 10 out of 10 to them. They were really onto it very quickly indeed, efficiently putting it out.
It looked as if, in fact, they crossed the track to get to that fire, so let's take our hats off to them, as you say, Murray. They had a little hiccup yesterday in firefighting, but they've got this one right. This is Channel 9's Wide World of Sports. We're in Adelaide for the Grand Prix, and we'll be right back after this.
Is fast and furious back here at the Adelaide Grand Prix racetrack. We are in the 26th minute in this 60-minute final qualification practice session, and there is Gerhard Berger, the man who is in pole position at the moment, on line for his third pole position of the year, waiting to go out in the Ferrari, but the red flag is out, so there is trouble around the track. The Grand Prix practice is being stopped, and that will be the reason. Piercarlo Ghinzani's car is on fire. Why isn't Ghinzani getting out? He's obviously not too worried. But the practice is being stopped.
Well, it is, after all, a cigarette sponsorship, and it is smoking well, and it is French tobacco. Ghinzani obviously is inhaling it helpfully. I don't know, he's sitting in the car. Maybe he's fallen asleep.
The black flag says you must stop at his pit. I suspect that Ghinzani would be only too happy if he could get there, because he's sitting there with an obvious problem, which is stopping him from moving.
He's on brand new tyres. He must just have left his pit. The fire has gone out. The rescue vehicle has come to him. I think also a combination of the car that was previously in fire. Moreno's car will be towed out of the way because it was in potentially a precarious position. So a combination of both, I think, really will allow the racetrack to be cleared. Now, this means that qualifying time, the clock will be stopped. In other words, this is not lost time from the drivers, and the clock has stopped at 25 minutes and 27 seconds. So until we get sorted out, and these are the mechanics of the Ligier of Ghinzani's car looking at the monitor within the garage. All the garages here in Adelaide have TV monitors. Ghinzani is still sitting in the car, and of course that is not the scene of Ghinzani. That is Alain Prost with his teammate Stefan Johansson under the umbrella. A little more leisurely time, and there's Nakajima with our camera on board. He's sitting at the end of the pit lane, waiting to go out, sitting behind one of the Lola cars, the car, in fact, driven by Philip Alliot.
Well, if there is one man who is unlucky as you look at the grid positions so far in Grand Prix racing, it is Piercarlo Ghinzani. He's a 35-year-old Italian who comes from Bergamo, and on Sunday he will be driving in his 65th Grand Prix. The best he has ever done, there he is to finish 5th once, 2 points. He started racing a long time ago. This season in the Ligier team, who have been beset with engine problems all the way through the year, the best he has been able to do is a 7th place in Belgium. Ligier intended to start this season with Alfa Romeo engines, something that they hoped was going to give them what every Grand Prix team hopes they will have, what is called an unfair advantage, something that the others haven't got. But the Alfa Romeo engine turned out to be inappropriate and unsuitable for Grand Prix racing, and they took the engine away when René Arnoux, the outspoken other driver in the French Ligier team, said in public, very forcefully indeed, what he thought of the engine, and I can tell you it wasn't very much. So Alfa Romeo said, well, if that's your attitude, you're not going to have the engines. And Guy Ligier, who is an irascible French ex-international rugby player and built like one, had to set about finding new engines. What he did was to go to the Arrows team, led by Jackie Oliver, and ask if he could buy or lease some of the ex-BMW Megatron engines that Arrows had an exclusive arrangement for this year. Arrows very happily said yes, because the money they got meant that they would be able to get in extra testing time. But Ligier has been operating very, very thinly on the engine front, and they've only got 7 engines here for the whole of this meeting. And you can see what's happening now as Senna, looking as impassive as ever, sits underneath the umbrella, looking at the television monitor, waiting to go out, as does Nelson Piquet. That's Frank Durney on the right in the white headphones. Frank Durney is not only Piquet's race engineer, but he is the man who is responsible for the dynamics of the Williams car and has designed and developed the active suspension system.
And Marino's car is also being brought back along with Gonzani's. Both of those cars were stopped in the same area of the track, and for that reason the red and black flag were shown so that they could be brought in. And of course the fact that both of the cars were stationary on the same part of the racetrack meant that the stewards felt that they better be cleared. They stopped the clock, and of course this is now being corrected.
Well, that's the scene on the track. What is the scene in the pits? Darryl Eastlake can tell us.
Well, Murray, I guess the hardest part for the people in the pits is that when a circuit like this is so closed up, they can't get out to check their cars. They're really being looked at the Channel 9 monitor. And Alan, it is difficult. I mean, they've got two cars stopped out on the circuit, and the only information they're getting are from our cameras.
Well, that's right, and it's difficult for the team too, because obviously they'd like to get the car back and see if they could get it going for one more shot at qualifying. But on a tight, twisty circuit like this, it's very important that you get the cars off the track, because it does represent a danger to the other qualifiers.
Two things you said to me are starting to happen. You said that the track is slippery and the choice of tyres had to be important. The other thing, the heat was going to affect the turbos, and that's fire.
Well, that's right. I think that it'll be very difficult to improve upon yesterday's times. That's why I stated yesterday that every day is equally as important as the next, because they would have to have gone for a good time yesterday, because today has turned out to be very hot, and quite frankly I think they'll be very lucky to improve on yesterday's times because of the heat.
Well, as picked by our former world champion Alan Jones, he summed up the situation spot on yesterday. So there you go. We're waiting on the cars to come back now, and we believe they're on the way down pit lane. So we might just take a walk out here and see what damage is done. Alan, you can have a look at the cars as they get towed in, and this pit here will really come alive now.
Yes, Darryl, there's obviously nothing structurally wrong with the car. It's obviously a mechanical failure. I would probably guess a turbo, because there's tremendous strains put on both the turbo and the engines in qualifying. They're really strained to the limit, and they're only asked to do 2 or 3 laps, but sometimes that's 2 or 3 laps too much.
The workload on the pit crews now with 2 cars in problems, I mean, it's hard enough keeping one going, but when you've got 2 out together, that's a big problem.
Yeah, well, I would have been doing engine changes after this qualifying session anyway. They would be putting fresh engines in for tomorrow's race, so this will probably get them started a bit earlier.
Well, there's no doubt about it. One of the most exciting parts of Australia right now is this pit lane at the Adelaide Raceway. Murray?
25 minutes out of 60 completed in this second qualifying session. A bit of a lull in practice. Join us again soon. Welcome back to Adelaide. 25 minutes of practice completed, and it is still in a hold situation. One of the cars has been brought back, that of Roberto Moreno. Gonzani's car is back now, and they're waiting in the pit lane, ready to restart practice as soon as they are given the all clear. I can see the green flag being readied, so that means to say that the track is clear. The start official looks at his watch. The engine revs rise. The green flag is shown. The track is clear. It is go for René Arnoux, followed by Satoru Nakajima. There is Arnoux coming towards us in the Ligier. Their tyres are being checked. Actually, Satoru Nakajima's car has had its engine stalled, and they've got to restart it. So that lets Capelli, there is Nakajima's picture. He's getting away now. Capelli is away next in the 3.5 litre march, followed by Eddie Cheever. There is Capelli in the distinctively coloured 3.5 litre car. There is Italian-American Eddie Cheever in the Arrows. Next through is the Lola of Philippe Alliot, the Frenchman. Ayrton Senna is waiting to join the track, and it's at this stage where, this is interesting, because neither Nakajima's engine, Honda, nor Senna's engine, Honda, started.
It may be because of temperature. It quite often can be that they've turned the boost up to its maximum permissible 4 bars, and it may be that the engine doesn't like it. The plumbing, the cooling of each engine is different between the Honda engine in a Williams chassis to the Honda engine in a Lotus chassis. There is a considerable difference. The cars are now filing out. The officials are only letting them out with a gap of about 10 seconds. They're looking at the tyres and making sure the officials reckoning whether they've got qualifying tyres on or not. And the car next up, the blue, white and yellow car, is that of Nelson Piquet, world champion-elect.
We've talked about tyres a lot. Now, the way they establish that the cars are, in fact, only using one of the 2 sets they're allowed to use is that each set of tyres has the car's race number stenciled on the side of it before practice begins. And the cars are stopped as they exit the pit lane by officials who take a quick look at the front and rear 4 tyres and make sure that in Piquet's case, the number 6 is stenciled on the sidewall of each of those tyres. And now, in the 28th minute of this 60-minute practice session, still only 9 men have gone faster than they went yesterday. 35 minutes or so left then of this practice, with Berger still the fastest man ever at Adelaide, because he shattered Nigel Mansell's pole position time of last year when he went out in the red Ferrari yesterday. You can see that he is 0.8 of a second faster than Piquet, and that is a tremendous margin of superiority. The Ferrari has not only got the power and the handling now, but even more important for tomorrow's race, which is going to be a very long one, it has a very fuel-efficient engine.
The Ferrari is going through sort of troubles with their drivers in the way of medication, etc. One of Berger's really close friends told me just before qualifying that Berger was complaining so badly about his breathing that he reckons he did his fastest lap yesterday in one big breath. Now, I can hardly believe that, but he said that when he crossed the finishing line, he immediately had to unbuckle his seatbelt because he wasn't breathing correctly. Now, I think this business about his illness is certainly something that he's playing up just a little bit. It's a psychological thing, and it may be to his advantage, I don't know. Jody Scheckter used to always complain about always being ill. He was a hypochondriac. Nigel Mansell's a man who complains constantly about his physical condition. He's always got something wrong with him, and it seems that Berger's falling to the same ailment. So here am I talking in one breath about the physical fitness of those racing drivers, their conditioning and their diet, and on the one hand, on the other hand, they're complaining about constantly being ill.
What did you do wrong, Jackie, if you have to be highly strung to be a #1 driver?
Well, you have to be very highly strung in one hand, but you've got to control your emotions in that respect, and I think the man who does that best, Murray, at least in the racing tracks, not in the commentary positions naturally, is of course Alain Prost.
Nice one, Jackie. Right, well, we're looking at Michele Alboreto now, and spinning off there, spinning off, it's Arnoux. Who else? René Arnoux, but this time he succeeded in going off without taking somebody with him. I should think that'll be a matter of great disappointment to him, because he normally harpoons someone on his way off the course. Alain Prost slows down because Arnoux has stalled his engine, and he's got to get someone to give him a shove to restart it.
Well, in fact, he's going to have to. It looks like he's stalled his engine in the worst possible place. It's at the end of the straight. So the marshals will undoubtedly remove him. Now, whether he'll get restarted or not, he's in a position of danger. The flag marshals can push him away without any fear of contradiction in race control, saying he's not going to get restarted. He's saying he doesn't want to go forward. The marshals are now bringing him back. Now, he will unquestionably try to start up his engine when they push him forward. He'll try to engage a gear and kick-start it. Now let's see what happens here, because the marshals could technically push him backwards across the racetrack and keep him out of danger. Now wait till you see if he kicks this one to start. They've given up. He's running.
Yes,
he's okay.
His foot slipped on the clutch, Jackie, didn't it?
It's amazing how these accidents of good faith can happen.
So, Renianu on his way again, having been passed by one of the arrows, which are going extremely well, actually. Cheever in 11th position on the grid, Derek Warwick in 12th place, and watch the Benetton of Farby, just behind Arnoux.
Incidentally, Derek Warwick had an engine change between practice and qualifying. They had an engine go wrong with them, so he's got a fresh engine, Derek Warwick has, for qualifying, as Theo Fabi brings his Benetton with the united colours of Benetton all over this car. It must be, really, it's the coat of many colours, because my goodness, is a piebald pony.
And it is still just 9 men who have gone faster today than they went yesterday. The fastest of whom, as off goes Alio in the 3.5 litre Lola, the fastest of whom is Patrese in 6th place. And look where Alio's done it. Right on the hairpin, right on Foster's hairpin, which leads into the start and finish straight. He's getting a shove to get him going as Senna passes by. Senna has got Dana in front of him, and behind him he has got Alessandro Nannini in the Minardi car. But now Ayrton Senna really needs to get a tramp on. It's 1:22.2 is his time today, compared with 1:18.5 yesterday. He is in 4th position on the grid. He would like to move up into the front row, but he's not going to do it because he slows down. Nannini passes him. And it's Berger fastest, Piquet second. That's the front row. Prost 3rd fastest and Senna 4th fastest, 2nd row. The 3rd row is Alboreto and Patrese. Then Boutsen and Farby, followed by Johansson and De Cesaris.
So Alain Prost guides his way around Adelaide as we're live here on Channel 9's Wide World of Sports. And we'll be back for more coverage of qualifying, the final hour.
As world champion Alain Prost reaches the end of a quick lap. His target is 1:18.2. I have my stopwatch running on him. He is not going to go faster than he has done before, but he's building up to speed. And I can tell you that there's lots of action, because that is Stefano Medina going off. The Italian in his first Grand Prix drive, who only did a few laps this morning in the 1.5-hour session, but he recovered brilliantly.
And darn lucky he was not to get that rear aerofoil wiped out there, because he just missed that rubber tyre wall there of those tyres, or he could have been into serious trouble with regards to a disarrangement of the rear artistic aerofoil, because that was something that could have caused him a lot of trouble. Might not have allowed him back to the pits either. So Medina was very fortunate. I think there's too much spinning going on, Murray. I don't like drivers making this many mistakes so obviously.
Well, Medina was one of them. Look at it again. See him right up over the curb. Now look and see how close that rear wing gets to the tyre wall that Jackie was talking about. But that is an indication of how incredibly good these race drivers' reflexes are, because he instantly sized up where he was in relation to the track, snicked it into first gear, drove out. He's back in the pit lane now, having his car checked over for safety. He needs all the racing mileage that he can get, because this Adelaide meeting is the first time that ex-world champion in the kart 125cc class Stefano Medina has ever driven in. And he is an excellent 15th position on the grid as a result of his time yesterday, and that's Patrese. Patrese off. Now it looks to me, I was about to say, it looks to me as though he's going to stay there, but he gets traction. That's the way he went off.
And he was dead lucky not to hit that wall. He went along parallel to that wall, amazingly close to it. This is how lucky you can be. You can count on that for luck. That wasn't good judgment on that one.
Well, Jackie, what's your theory that so many people are going off?
I think they're taking liberties. I don't understand why they're taking such liberties. The racetrack is definitely slick, there's no doubt about it. They've all been holidaying up on the barrier reef. Look at this replay again. Look how close he comes to that wall. He really gets himself within inches of that wall round there. He was over on the barrier reef. Maybe he's had too much of the sun up there. He was in Hamilton Island. We were all there together one night for dinner. He was so relaxed, he fell asleep at one point. So maybe some of those drivers, the last race of the season, maybe they've unplugged a little bit, because I cannot associate so many cars going off the road with people being really clued in mentally to it. There's too many mistakes.
Well, here's one who hasn't made any so far, Ayrton Senna. The cool, calm, very deliberate 27-year-old Brazilian who has 2 Grand Prix victories this season behind him, passing or attempting to pass Christian Danner's Zack-Speed as the German comes up to take the line on the corner. And behind Ayrton Senna is one of the 3.5-litre Tyrrells. And Senna is obviously taking things easy at the moment, building up to race speed.
You know, speaking about this excursion business of spinning off the tracks, we never see this at the beginning of a season, Murray. We never see it in the middle of a season. We go to racetracks that are green, sometimes very slippery, and we simply don't see drivers making this number of errors. It surely must be an end-of-season malady.
Yes, I guess you're right. In association, in their defence, with a surface that they say is very slippery, but they are obviously taking chances. Michele Alboreto, number 27, in spite of his hay fever, going well, 5th position on the grid. With yesterday's time, the top 5 men on that grid that you see there have gone slower today than they went yesterday. 6th on the grid, Riccardo Patrese, that you have just seen spin off in the Williams, is faster today than he was yesterday, but that would be as a result of the experience he had in Friday's practice and this morning, getting in particular to know the Williams gearbox better, which he was commenting yesterday was not as good in his opinion as the Brabham gearbox to which he is used. Michele Alboreto, Ferrari. Very often at the end of practice you will hear drivers say, I couldn't go any quicker, it wasn't me, it wasn't the car, it was the traffic. And you can see what I mean when I tell you that Michele Alboreto is catching now one of the much slower around this circuit 3.5-litre Lolas, and if that man doesn't move over and give him room, Alboreto is going to be slowed down. That's Bernie Ecclestone, the top man of FOCA, the Formula One Constructors Association, and the man who is actually responsible for the Australian Grand Prix coming here to Adelaide, so we've got a lot to thank him for. He's also the top man of Brabham, and he is sitting with Herbie Blash, his number 1 man standing beside him. On the Brabham pit counter you can see the 2 monitors in front of him showing him the times of his cars and everybody else's. And now Alboreto, now we'll see whether, yes, the Lola's giving room. It's Dalmas. Dalmas has moved over, watching his mirrors, has let Alboreto through, so the Italian will not have lost any time there. You can see what his time is so far. What he's trying to do is beat his own time from yesterday, 1 minute 18.578. But it doesn't know, he's not going to do it because he's still got to come out of Foster's hairpin. He's a long way off.
Wow, while he sets himself up for yet another lap here in Adelaide, this is Murray Walker and Jackie Stewart. We'll be right back live for more practice and qualifying in just a moment.
Well, back at the Adelaide racetrack, here is the pocket genius Alain Prost, the world champion of 1986 and 1985. But try as he may, he has not thus far succeeded in improving on his time of yesterday. 10 men have, and some of them have spun off in the process. There, for instance, is Billy Vallio losing the Lola, scrubbing speed off and covering himself with dust.
Rear brakes came on before the front brakes. We could see in the replay there the rear brakes stopped before the front brakes took action. So there we'll see another replay of this perhaps and try and analyse this spin as it comes in. Look at the brakes, look at the rear brakes. The rear brakes are catching, he's on the loose stuff with the rear brakes, so the brake balance needs adjustment. He can usually do that from the cockpit of the car, but very few racing drivers can accurately do that, as somebody else has gone off at the top end of the pit straight as Berger sits waiting to go out, and René Arnoux has spun off at the top at the beginning of the front straight as a cool set of eyes, even though he thinks he's got a temperature and he's got a fever. Gerhard Berger will forget all of those things when the adrenaline starts to pump. I can assure you that's what happens as a racing driver. I've had situations, and there's René Arnoux being pushed away again, trying to restart his car. Will it restart? It has done. So René spins for the second time this afternoon as Berger drives his car down the pit lane, coming to the end of the pit lane now. Gerhard Berger is stopped by the officials as René Arnoux drives around slowly.
Here is Berger, the second of these two cars, the Scarlet Ferrari with the yellow flashes on the front aerofoil and the rear wing. He is now undoubtedly in the closing minutes of the practice session, going out to try to beat his pole position time of 1 minute 17.3 seconds. So Gerhard Berger ahead of Nakajima's Lola. This is the man to stay with because he is the top man.